you haven't seen this yet, I'll leave it up here. You'll probably know it's from a song. Some of you may already have guessed, but I'll read this. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. And as you speak, God, 100 billion failures disappear, where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left a grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done, every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I. I can see your heart 8 billion different ways, every precious one a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. So will we? There's a story. Two elderly women were driving a very large car, and they could barely see over the dashboard. No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you, Mary. Bless you. I'll tell you what, Mary, you have been a blessing to me, and I just want to say that. Absolute blessing. Yes, you. Yes, you. But two women were driving in this car, and as they were going by, the passenger looked and thought, we've just gone through a red light. So it just smells. Do you need to confess something? But thought, no, that can't be. And of course, they just continued to chat and natter a bit. And then, whoom, sure enough, another red light. She thought, I must be losing my mind. That was another red light. They continued to chat and continued to drive along. And then, sure enough, a few minutes later, whoom, another red light, guaranteed. And she looked and she said, Mildred, don't you realize that's the third red light you've gone through? You're going to kill us. Mildred turns and says, oh, am I driving? Sometimes we can be like Mildred. We're content. We're happy. We're traveling along. Things are fine. And we all understand that there's a difference between things are great and things are fine. But we're content, and we're allowed others to drive. We're content to be the passenger. We're content to just let things go. But as Christians, if you are a Christian, if you are a disciple of Christ, we are at the wheel of an important mission. We have a responsibility. You know, being a Christian isn't just about coming to church. We have a responsibility. And that is to evangelize, to tell people about Jesus. And it's not someone else's job. Now, some are gifted. Not me, but some are very gifted. But we're all called. All of us are called to tell people about Jesus. Now, maybe some of you are thinking, well, we do that here. We have messy church, and we have Christmas events and Easter events, and we have, all of the youth stuff. We do loads and loads of things. Why are we talking about evangelism? In the 1960s, the American Chevy Nova was GM's most popular car, one of the biggest selling cars that GM have. And considering this, directors thought, we are going to send this car out to the rest of the world. And it did fairly well, except in Spain, where it failed horribly. Sales were just non-existent. And when they looked at it, they recognized that in most Spanish-speaking countries, the Chevy Nova did very, very poor in sales. And they didn't quite get it. They didn't understand until someone said, you do realize that Nova in Spanish means no go or not going. Who would buy a car named No Go? You see, the car was the same. The same car that did well in America and other countries did poor in these countries because the directors were no longer relevant to those people. When the church discusses evangelism, it must ask itself, are the conditions and attitudes which allowed the church to thrive so much in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, are those attitudes of those people still the same then as they are today? If you're in your 70s and you're speaking to someone in their 20s, things are different. And religion is no different. In the 50s and 60s, there was this expectation. People went to church. Some of you just probably understand that. In schools, you learned about Christianity. But today, that's very, very little. There is no expectancy to go to church. In the 50s and 60s, maybe 80% thought, I believe there's a God. But today, you may be lucky to get 20% who even believe in anything apart from their own self-existence. And I want that to sink in for just quickly. People of today, so especially the children growing up today, they don't care about God and they don't care about church. They just don't care. It's not relevant to them. It's meaningless. How do we attract those people? Why do I need God? 50 years ago, the church may have struggled with sort of saying Jesus was the only way. But today, people's thoughts and outlooks are so different and changed. They don't even think about heaven. 20 years ago, you'd go to your friend's house or a colleague from work, and you would chat and you would have relationships. But today, things have changed. Today, your friends are all on here. This could go horribly wrong. Fionn, if you had to say to someone, you're on mummy's phone and you can't say, what would you do with your hands? How do you think? Anyone else? If you had to tell someone you're on the phone, I knew it would go horribly wrong. Would you do that? You're on the phone? Yeah? Some of you would. How would we do it? We would do it like that. Do you realize that our kids, I would probably say from the age of 11 or 12, do not understand that when you phone someone, you can't see them? In their minds, when you phone somebody, you're able to see them. And you're able to chat with them, no matter where they are in the world. Things have changed. 30 years ago, people didn't mind if you talked about the love of God, but today people expect you to show them the love of God in your actions. Things have changed. The message hasn't changed, but the audience has. And the way you present the gospel needs to match. And when we look at evangelism, all it means is sharing good news. That's it. It's just sharing good news. And you're aware that every single one of us are evangelists. How do I know this? How many people have seen a film and then gone straight to their mates or their family and say, this film was great? You're sharing good news. Have you ever gone to a restaurant? Really good food, and you say to your friends, go to this place, it's really good. You're sharing good news. You're evangelizing. Why do we find it a struggle to tell people about Jesus? To tell people about the church? To tell people about what we did? What'd you do over the weekend? Yeah, I kind of went out, had some friends. Oh, it was great. How many times are we able to say, yeah, I went to church. Praise God. We sang hymns. We did this. We loved. You see, if you are a disciple of Christ, as we read Matthew 28, we're all commanded. We're commanded to tell people about Jesus. No one is exempt from this. It is a command. If you're a Christian and you do not tell people about Jesus, you're failing in your responsibility. And if anyone ever said to you, become a disciple of Christ and things are easy, they horribly lied to you. Being a Christian has responsibilities. I'm going to read a few statements. Some of these are quite interesting. Every Christian is either a missionary or an imposter. If sinners will go to hell, at least them leap over our bodies. And if they will perish, let them perish with our arms around their knees, imploring them to stay. If hell must be filled, let it be filled in the teeth of our exertions, and let no one go there unwarned or unprayed for. That's powerful. That's fighting. That's saying, no one is coming out of my grasp. if there existed only one man or woman who did not know Jesus, and if that person lived in the wilds of Siberia, and if it were necessary that all the millions of believers on the face of the earth should journey there, and every one of them plead with him, come to Jesus, before he could be converted, it would be worth it, because one soul has a countless price. I'm going to say this last bit. This is going to put your backs up a little bit, which is why I love doing it. Have you no wish for others to be saved? You're not saved yourself. Be sure of that. If you do not want other people to come to know Christ, you are not a Christian. All of those were spoken by Charles Spurgeon. He had to tell people about Jesus because Jesus loved him. He died for him, and he died for us. How could he not tell people about Jesus? So how do we do it? Now, for many, it's about getting people into the church. Oh, if we get them into the church, everything will be fine. And I'm ashamed to say I used to do that as well. Oh, if only I can get one of my mates to come into church, then the minister will speak powerfully, and the Spirit will guide him, and everything will be perfect and wonderful and happy. The problem is, some of us don't feel comfortable with bringing people into our churches. We know that our church is not particularly great in hospitality, or music, or acceptance, or is visually unimpairing, or something. And so we're trapped in this wanting people to come to know Christ, but a bit concerned about, do we bring them to church? How do we do it? And sometimes, let's be honest, the church has done horrible things in the past. And it's not been very good in accepting people. And I want to look at 4 examples very quickly and think where we are as Holy Lodge. Seeker hostile. Imagine a church where they expect everyone to do and think and live and act exactly like they are. They want people to come to know Christ, but if you don't look like us or act like us, we don't really want you coming along. We want you to know about Jesus, but we don't think that your current lifestyle is really acceptable to where we are as a church. I mean, what would people think if they see certain people coming to our church? You then have the seeker hopeful. This is the type of church that want people to come to know Christ. They run Sunday schools, different midweek activities. They encourage people, but things haven't changed. They've been doing the same thing for years, the same activity, on the same time, with the same people and the same material, all taking place in the same location, but expecting different results. I can't remember who said it, but it was something along the lines of, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results, that's the first sign of insanity. You then have seeker sensitive. As a church, you understand things need to change, but the extent of change is heavily managed. So long as the needs of those who have been coming to church for years are met first, you then will support other things. And then you have seeker targeted. The church conditions everything to target those people who don't know Christ. It evolves, and it changes, and it becomes relevant. It still supports and encourages growth and discipleship, but it does so after the energies and resources are spent on bringing people to come to know Christ. We should all be trying to be seeker targeted, all inviting and encouraging, and that is great. But how do we get those people into church? How did Jesus do it? How did Jesus do evangelism? What did he say and do? We're now going to watch a quick video, which Ian is going to boldly get up as we speak right this second.
Stories of the Bible. Jesus feeds the 5,000. This is Jesus,
Hey-o!
who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. While Jesus was on earth, he taught everyone about God's love. He did many miracles and healed people of their sickness.
Oh, hey, everyone!
A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. A crowd started to gather around Jesus, there were 5,000 men and many more women and children. Turning to Philip, he asked,
Hey, Philip!
"Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" You see, Jesus was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them."
Hey, I got an idea.
Then Andrew spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?" Jesus said, "Tell everyone to sit down."
Right, everyone, sit down.
Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and gave them to the people.
Here you go.
Afterward, he did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted.
Want some more? I'm all good, thanks.
After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers, so that nothing is wasted."
You got it.
So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps, left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. This is Zacchaeus,
Hey there.
who was a tax collector and very rich. Tax collectors were hated because many people thought they were liars and cheaters.
Boo.
Zacchaeus lived in Jericho, and one day, Jesus was passing through Jericho.
What's going on?
Jesus is here! Woohoo!
Zacchaeus wanted to see who Jesus was,
Hey, excuse me. Hey, watch where you're going.
but he was too short to see above the crowd.
Ah, that's it.
So he ran ahead to a place where he knew Jesus would come. He climbed to a sycamore tree so he could see Jesus. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and saw Zacchaeus in the tree.
Oh, hey there, friend. Who? Me? Yeah, you.
He said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down. I must stay at your house today."
Oh, all right.
Zacchaeus came down quickly. He was pleased to have Jesus in his house. All the people saw this and began to complain.
Ugh.
"Look at the kind of man Jesus stays with. Zacchaeus is a sinner." But Zacchaeus said to Jesus, "I will give half my money to the poor. If I have cheated anyone, I will pay that person back 4 times more." Jesus said, "Salvation has come to this house today.
What?
This man truly belongs to the family of Abraham. The Son of Man came to find lost people and save them."
So Jesus cared. He cared when no one else did. He showed people a different way. He hugged those who were unhuggable. He loved those who were unlovable. He spent time with those that had no friends. I want to look at 3 very quick things that we can do. Bridge building. I said people of today, they just don't know about God, but they do know you. They know you as a family member. They know you as a work colleague. They know you as a neighbor. They know you. And that relationship that you have with them can be more impactful than any church service ever. How are you being Jesus to those people? You see, if the world thinks that Christian over there who's next to me doesn't do anything, doesn't help me out, doesn't support me, doesn't even encourage me, doesn't tell me about what he does, well, maybe it's not important, maybe it's not for me. We always talk about Billy Graham. Why was Billy Graham successful? Because a Sunday school teacher took time to speak to him. Why are we not celebrating her and saying how well she was being dedicated to talking about Jesus to those who didn't know? Verbal witness. We actually need to talk about Jesus. I know that might seem a bit strange. But that is part of our faith. And we do need to say, I am a follower of Christ. We can't get away with it. You can't hide it. Tell people. You know, kids never have the problem. Why do we? Kids are always inviting people to church. They're talking about God. Why do we as adults seem to have a problem? Let's tell people about Jesus. And then invite them. Just invite them. What's the worst thing? Mike, I'm going to embarrass you, but what you said is very true. Sometimes it's difficult. You invite someone and they actually come along and you're going, oh, bummer. I didn't actually mean. But you know, that is a key thing. We never know where someone is in their life. And sometimes it just takes that one person, you know, and I'm going to go back to Billy Graham. Consider how successful he was, but who brought all those people to his events? He didn't bring them. Someone was invited, or you got invited, or you were told about it, and you went. Who are you inviting? At the heart of evangelism, Jesus showed love. He showed it in the words and actions. He invited, he fed, he healed, he calmed the storm, he turned water into wine. Are we relevant to the outside world? Are we the window that people can see Christ in our actions? Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at homes, ate food with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all people. All people. Didn't matter who they were. All people. They came along into the temples. All people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Why? Because they talked about God, they invited people, and they showed the love. That is evangelism. That is sharing the good news. And that is what Jesus commands us to do. We're going to sing our last song.